Hello and welcome to Nbyula Talks. Before we begin, we have a few updates and reminders for you. We would love to have you be part of our Nbyula community. And you can do so by logging on to www.nbyula.com, where you can join communities related to your area of interest, register for upcoming Nbyula Talks, book one-to-one skylifts, and view other upcoming events. You can also take this opportunity to connect with fellow learners or the speaker by sending a connection request. When you connect with the speaker, you will be able to contact them directly as well as receive updates about their upcoming talks. Kindly note that during this session, you will not be able to switch on your camera or unmute your mic. To ask questions during the talk, go to the audience chat, type your question, and select Post Your Question. If your question has not been answered during the talk, you will be notified once it's been answered, or if your question has not been answered during the talk, you can go to www.nbyula.com and spin a quest, and your questions will be answered. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this talk broadens your horizons and takes you to new learning heights.
Hello everyone, welcome to another enlightening Nbyula talk. Like always, we have a very special student mentor with us, Kumar. He's joining us from Germany. At present, Kumar is pursuing his PhD in Automotive Artificial Intelligence at FU Berlin. And because the names are a bit complicated, so Kumar will tell them for us. But he has completed his master's degree in electronical and computer engineering from TU Chemnitz, and he was a Dart scholar. So today he's here to share his journey about his master's program and scholarship. And over to you, Kumar, to tell your story in your own words.
Thanks for a nice introduction. And yeah, I hope that we have a nice exchange of questions, and I can clear some burning questions in some of yours mind.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, so as you introduced me rightly, I'm working as a PhD student right now, working toward the natural language processing in the autonomous driving domain. And before I did my master's in the embedded systems from the TU Chemnitz. And before that, I worked as a software engineer for around 4 years in India and did my bachelor's in electrical and electronics engineering from India as well.
That's wonderful to know. So before we jump to what we have, decided as a topic of the discussion, I would like you to share with our audience how did your journey in this academic arena start, about your undergraduate program in India, and how did you decide to pursue a master's?
So I already told, so I started with the electrical engineering because that is a thing which I knew that time when I decided to do my engineering. I was very close to physics, and that is the closest thing which I can knew about, and with no exposure of computer science. So that was not an option at all at that point of time in 2010. And then PhD, so I don't want package of education loans and other things for my master's. So that's worked out well quite nicely because my master's was almost funded either by a scholarship or by the work research assistant work which I did during my time here.
Thank you for bringing those in. That gives me a smooth segue to my next question. Like you said, you went to pursue a master's abroad and you worked for 2 years. So how did you finalize your major? Like you said you have worked in, you wanted to work in software and hardware both, but because you were a software engineer, how did you finalize that, in during masters I want to pursue this particular subject, that this would be my niche? Did a mentor help you? Did you research on your own, or did the university and program was the major choice?
Unfortunately, I don't have a much mentor, but one of my senior student from my uni, she was working she was doing her master's in the same area as mine. So good thing is that I had the theoretical experience from my bachelor's in electrical engineering, and then I get to know computer science while working. So if you see the embedded systems or hardware software interfaces, that's a good combination. So which kind of complemented my profile when I was applying. And since at least in Germany, they focus much on what you have studied rather than what you have experienced, at least from the admission perspective. So I selected the programs which are more hardware focused, like compared to softwares, because later you can come and took the electives which are more software, and you can expand your horizon based on which way you wanted to go, or because your interest keeps on changing after the more exposure. So yeah, so I knew that I wanted to work in where I can combine both of them, and then based on that I selected subjects which are combinations of both of these things, and then I applied based on the selected, because for me the subjects was much more better, because I wanted to go for the PhD. So I didn't wanted to just follow any program, but program which is like much more aligned to all my goal of the future. So that was the
Thank
way.
you so Thank you so much for that answer. Now, I personally don't understand a lot of technical jargons, but I'm sure my audience is filled with engineering students. So, if you could give more insight on how did you decide TU Chemnitz as your preferred college of education? How did you go about that research, and why would you recommend the same to the students who are watching here, Germany and the college?
I would not say I recommend for every student. It's like what you want to do, as I told you. It's like a very much personal
Yeah.
decision. But major thing which I was applying that is technical university, which are more research oriented, or Hochschule, which are slightly more applied oriented. So if you wanted to go for a job and wanted to have a slightly less course workload, or slightly more relaxed, then I believe that Hochschule is always a better option, because earning perspective there is not much difference. But if you wanted to have PhD or more research oriented career, I believe that TU was the better options. And then depending on my background, because some TU has the courses which are much more software focused, like Sutherland. So I knew that I will not get there, because they wanted to have a more software background. And since I had the software background in job, but not in my studies, so I knew that it is a no-go for me. But yeah, I applied as a backup for some Hochschule, because you can do the PhD after that, but slightly difficult. But it pans out nice, because I have some offers from the USA. So it's just a selection that which fits best as per my need and my future alignment.
Thank you so much
And
for that.
as for the students, it's my personal belief that to find the subject where there are two things. One is a skill, and one is that your interest. So you have to find a right balance between both of them. So if you have a lot of good interest, but you don't have skills, you will struggle, and then you will lose the interest. So I always believe that if you can find something in between, so that you learn also, and you also are motivated enough, or kind of excited enough, that's make a good combination, and try to find the course, because all universities have their course listed on their website. And if you apply for the specific course which you can align with your interest and experience, and you spend a lot of time on writing the letters for your university application, that really makes things much more easier and much more chances of getting success.
Thank you so much for that information, Kumar. I look forward to hearing all the answers in depth from you for the questions I have lined up. Coming to this point that you mentioned, that when you decide to apply to university, that thought to translate into reality, there are so many steps to it, the SOPs, the letter of recommendations. So if you can walk our audience through, how did you go about applying? I mean, you were managing a full-time job too as well, I'm assuming. So how did you take out the time, and how many months did you give it to make your application perfect?
For me, it was a long process, because since I told you, USA and Germany are two different application time frame. It's started with writing GRE. I wrote GRE and TOEFL, because both are kind of applicable for the both places. Germany not so important, but TOEFL is almost everywhere required, especially if you are from India. And so in that case, that was a slightly easier part for me, but I spent a lot of part on writing my letters, and crafting means after some failures in application, I get to know what I was doing wrong or right. And since I didn't use any consultancy service, I used everything by my own. But that gave a good advantage, that everything was quite genuine, not the copy paste from many places, because professors who are evaluating your applications, they have an eye to find um, differences. Since I'm also see the thesis now as a PhD student for bachelor's and master, I can spot the things which are copy pasted or not like generic. So I spent quite a lot of time in writing the SOP, and my professors from my bachelor's, they also wrote the letters by themselves. So unlike many consultants who write a draft for you and they just write it. So I think that gives you quite a good advantage in that case, because you get away and And also like GPA is a criteria which you cannot much change because that's always fixed for you. Um, so that's a thing which will also impact a lot because that's kind of a make or break parameter. Like it's kind of the initial filter which most of the university, I guess, apply for your applications, and then it comes to your overall application package. So it's a time consuming process. I would not say it's not. And I think the biggest time consuming was finding the among the so many universities, which one is where you are going to apply, like 5 or 6 where you want to target and focus your time, because each application document, if I remember correctly, used to take me around 5 to 8 hours for one university.
That is like a huge amount of time to
Yeah,
invest in something that you even don't know what the outcome will be,
that's correct.
right? So I just want to break down the process in some part and take up as individual questions so that students who are also applying on their own can take this web like Nebula talk as the inspiration and go about writing their applications. So when you were drafting out your SOPs, like you said, you wrote on your own. What are the things that you should keep in mind, like you would advise especially engineering students when they're drafting out their SOPs? A lot of people I have interviewed, they tell me that I always sometimes I mention that what I don't know is also important to mention in your SOP. Don't lie, be yourself. In addition to that, if there is something you can tell us.
So that's a good point which you came out, that don't lie, be yourself. Thing is that based on your background, professors or the people who are evaluating the application, they evaluate the people who can success in that courses. So basically, it's like they wanted you to take those students who can finish on the time or who can have a good career. So that's a quite important. And yes, better to write what you don't know, or I would not say don't. I would say don't write I don't know this thing. Say that I have some set of skills, but I want to expand it further. That gives you a good impression that he is looking for, because goal of masters is to enhance your intellectual talent, all those things. So say that I have something as a background, but I want to make it better. And that's why I wanted this course. So for example, you can say that I'm quite good in, I'm reasonably good in this thing. I got some experience, but I want to get deeper understanding of this specialization of the subjects. And since your course teased all those things, I think it's a good point for me. So that's I think a best option which you can write in the SOPs. And also you can say or showcase that how you have tackled the problems, especially in your project work, your bachelor's project, I think, as your almost all of us will be doing. And you can say that how you tackle those problems, because or in a more manner, how you independently tackle some of the problems. So or how, even if you failed it, what you learn from those failures, so you can have one paragraph dedicated to all that. That can be quite helpful. But yeah, as different university have different requirements, so and different courses, so you have to tailor as per their requirement, like number of pages and all those things. Because try, because your application don't get much time, so try to, and don't repeat the things which you have already written in the resume or CV, because your SOP is something else, like which expand or give sense to your CV. Because a lot of students try to write just the same stuff repeat, because then you are misusing the space provided to you, or the 1 or 2 page given to you. So try to complement the resume or expand it further, because many things you cannot write. For example, what problems you faced during the project, you cannot write in the resume. You just write XYZ project and I use this technology. But what is a learning from you? That's the place for the SOP. And some, I don't know about some people that there, when I was kid, I found this thing and then it inspired me. At least in Germany, they don't care for those kind of things. They are much more to the points as for the German culture. So just write how you are going to benefit from that course, and how you will enrich the course, in the sense that what you will give to them. So it's like a negotiation skill, that you give something to the course and you get something from them. So uh, sort out that thing, and that's can be a reasonable SOP. And then I'm not a SOP expert for say, because I did it myself. I have my own fair share of failures, but yeah, I learned from some other people. They told me something, but I wish that I could have more knowledge like that. But yeah, it's my general understanding, which I can see right now after the 4 years.
That's amazing to know. And that one point that you said, that will stand out for me from this talk is German people are very to the point. Because I know a lot of people, I read a book which had 50 essays from Harvard selected SOPs, and they all start from their the dawn moment they had, like what inspired them to pursue the program. But I like from what you said, I don't think that will work in Germany.
No, here even the university is not catered around all those kind of thing like sports. Teaching is completely independent from all other activity of university, and professors don't care that you are a very big football player or debate champion. They don't care. If you are good for that course, that means that a specific subjects you have better grade. So for example, you are applying for the Java programming based course and you have very good grade in Java. That's the biggest plus point in any of your achievement, which is not, for example, if you have some research papers, that's also adds a lot of value, but otherwise all those things don't add value in the German system as per my understanding. It can be wrong, but as per my personal experience.
I don't think it is wrong because you're pursuing PhD there. I'm sure you have a very good idea of how things work in Germany, and that's amazing to know. It's one of the first that I am hearing. So thank you so much for that information. Another thing that we are very curious about in your journey is your scholarship program. And during the pre-talk, you told me that you got the scholarship after you went to Germany. So I just want to understand two things. Before you got the scholarship, how did you manage to fund yourself for the program? Like for the students, they might not have a scholarship immediately. And how did it go, like getting a scholarship after you got the admission?
So since I worked for India, so I have a reasonable bit of savings. So finance was not a big problem for me before coming to Chemnitz. But thing is that I got a research assistant job at the university after 6 months. So after that, it reasonably take care of my finances. And then after 1 year, I got the scholarship. So I applied. Since I was working as a research assistant, I have a good network at my professors. So they told that, Kumar, you can apply for this scholarship. You have reasonable chances of getting that. He told I will push for, since I was working with them, so they know me how I'm doing the research with their postdoc and their PhD student. So he told that I will write a letter for you, and then you have the reasonable good GPA. So you can just apply and later we can see. So I applied with the professor's letter, my GPA, and they also consider, I heard that, I'm not sure about the internal process, but they also consider your bachelor's score at a certain extent. And based on the pool of candidates, they selected me, and that kind of increased the more funding for you. But since I was also haven't left the research assistant job, so that kept on coming. But yeah, fundings have a different deadlines. For example, in some fundings they say that if you are earning that much amount of money, then you are not allowed to take money, so that they wanted to have a fair sale to a student. So funding was never a problem for me, except the first 6 months, which I self-sustained. After that, I have a reasonably good cash inflow either as my research assistant work, which is paid here, and since I have to work in the university itself, so I don't have to spend travel time and all those things. But otherwise, then a scholarship kind of increased me more funding. Even if I quit the working, I could have survived nicely for in that way.
That's good to know. And from what I've heard, DART scholarship is one of the greatest scholarships you can be selected for, because they really take care of the students well. So out of the scholarship, what did you gain, like apart from the funding? What other did they provide you mentorship assistance? And how, if a student wants to apply for the scholarship before they go for the program abroad, are you aware of the process for the same?
I'm not persuaded about how you can get the funding before going to Germany. It's highly competitive, and you should have a very spectacular resume. And I'm not sure about the second tier or third tier university they would consider, mostly unless you have some good research paper. If you have some good research paper published in some journals as a part of bachelor thing or something else, then there are very high chances of getting that. But those are very limited before you land to Germany, or I might not be aware about that. But thing is that
Right.
funding and yeah, means mentors thing is that mentors choose you in the general life. It's not like you just go and they can, because they have to like you and you have to like them. So my professors become my mentor, very nice mentor. I'm still in touch with them even I left the universities, which is kind of not so popular in Germany, because there is no support apart from a study. Professors just come and teach you. They don't care you are studying or not, or what you are doing, how you are struggling. They don't care. They just come, teach, and go. It's your job what to do with that, and you make your own network. I was fortunate enough or kind enough to got mentorship from them, which really helped me in that sense that they told me about a scholarship which I was unaware about, which I might not have got if he and their postdoc haven't told me. And also they told me about the career part, like what is the way of doing that. But that's a separate story. But a scholarship always helps you, and universities sometimes also announce by their email channel that these are the scholarship. Usually they are quite competitive. They have one more scholarship where you get around 300 euro per month, but that is reserved only for certain fractions of a student, because that depends on how much people they are willing to fund. So there are different kind of scholarship, not only that, but university have their own alumni scholarship where their past alumni say that, okay, I will sponsor 2 of your students from that department. So there are also
Okay.
those kind of possibilities. So every university have different way of, but that is in almost every university. But yeah, the number of quotas which they might have can differ from one to another.
Thank you so much for that information. I mean, or you can always read up things online, but when you get to know it from the person themselves, I think that information is always priceless. So, coming back to your academics before we pursue in other arenas, that how did you decide on doing, like you said, you're always sure about doing your PhD, but after your master's, I'm sure the opportunities would have come forward. And like, can you share the opportunities that you came across right after your master's in jobs or otherwise?
So I wrote my thesis in a company. It's like a mid-sized company. So I got offers from them as well. And apart from that, 3, 4 more offers from some of the big automotive company, tier one automotive, like I would not name them, but some of the biggest company, they offered me job in the Munich area. So there was quite a lot. Means either you can go in the traditional research way, because since you have the masters, you can go in the research engineer. Positions are quite less, or you can also you can also become the research assistant at the university, like a full time. Then you have the options to work on the PhD at your side job. Means you work at the research, and from that you research, you can work toward your PhD, or you can go for the classical software engineer's job also. They are open. So it's like there are multiple options for you, because at this point of time, I don't know about the future, but at this point of time, they are in the reasonably good time. uh, but you have to be aware that if there are 2 students of the similar kind of talent, the people who know German will be given much more or preference in a reasonable way. And reason is that, and if you don't have some kind of internship or work student or like research assistant experience, then you become slightly second priority, because in their mind they are quite conservative sometimes also, that you don't have a German experience in the sense that as a intern work student, where a student work as a side job, that also count toward that. So, and language, which also depends on the company size. If they are a startup in the big cities like Berlin and like all those big cities, not they don't have so much problem with the language. But if they are the big classical German companies, they usually have the first preference. But thing is that in the software engineering, it's not so difficult. But if you have the language, it's become much more easier. I also learned language. Means I had some classes in India, but I learned language while studying here, and that also helped me in some way.
Yeah, that was my another question, clubbing those two together. Before going to Germany, these days I see a lot of reels on Germany, and when I see them, even on railway stations, in India, how there are two languages, it's written in there. Sometimes it's just they're just written in German. So, because you knew you were going to Germany, how did you prepare for the language? Because learning a language is a different steep curve. Like, you have to start from the basics, ABCD. How did that journey look like for you?
For me, it's quite different. So I have to complete the language in order to get the admit. So it's like I have the admit, but they need a certificate of that. I know some language by my own, but it was not so sufficient to pass the that certification exam. So while working full time, I also did the intensive costume class for 1.5 month, as far as I remember. And then I got the A1 level, that is a basic level, passed. And then after that, I just came, and university provide you free language classes, so which you can take the advantage of. So I just use those options, and also immersed in some of the cultural activity years, and some friends also helped me. So in that way, I would not say I'm very good in German or reasonably good, but somehow I can manage it. I can do the some stuff here.
Yeah, we
Although some
wouldn't mind
small
hearing
coding.
some. You wouldn't mind hearing some German from you today by the end of the talk.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yes.
means
Yeah.
if you know German, there are very high chances that you can get the initial screening quite easily. For example, human resource people, if they call you and they know that they don't want you to have a technical German, that will be very high expectations for them. If you have, that's very good. But even if you not, if you show them that you can learn it or you have some understanding, they are quite happy to accommodate you for that.
That's wonderful to know. My another question is, you said you have worked as, research assistant in your university only. So for people, let's say they know they've got admitted in this university, what did that journey look like? So did you apply, or was it a placement cell that you applied to, or did they pick you as an assistant? But what is the process like?
So there are multiple options. There is placements in the sale that they just advertise the vacancy from some professors that this professor has a vacancy for one research assistant, a student research assistant, they call it, and they publish it on their website also. Otherwise, professors also put those notifications on their department notice board. And third, you can also proactively approach them, especially if you have the very good grades in their subjects. So that's why you get only those jobs after your first semester minimum, because then they know that how much grade you have obtained. If you have very good grade in that professor subjects, that's much more easier. It's like you just go and talk to them, and if as soon as a new set of funding comes, they will say, I heard that you are looking for a job that one, so you can call them. So they are not single way. Like most of the time it happens that, okay, I know a student, professor knows a student, just call that guy, and since you are looking for a job, he had very good grades in that way. And sometimes, or you can also work, if you are in the big cities, there are also options to work in the big companies as a student researcher or a student employee, like up to 20 to 40 hours a month, depends on the regulations. So you can, if you're in a big cities, that's the advantage. Or you can also work in a other small jobs like working in the restaurant and other thing. But if you are, but that experience doesn't count most of the time because they are not relevant to your study. So big cities have advantage that there are a lot of small companies where you can work as a student employee in that respective area, which kind of pays better than the university also. But they are not directly research oriented. But my main focus was the research, so that is like a better option for me.
That's wonderful to know. I mean, I believe when you work along you study, that is the best combination to get the best results, and you make such good network at when you're working
That
also.
means there are pros and cons. Cons are that you have less time for studies as well. So you have to manage both of
Right.
them. You cannot get the advantage of networking, exposure, and also then you might have to sacrifice some of the sleep or parties.
Yeah, I can. Some campus life has to be let go
Yeah.
of. Definitely, I understand that. Um, Coming back to your PhD program, uh, like I wouldn't maybe understand all of it, but if you can walk our audience through the curriculum and of your master's program and also the PhD thesis that you're working on. So if anybody has a specific question regarding the subject that you're studying or working on, they can reach out to you for that.
So for me, I have a gradual transition from electrical engineering to computer science. During my masters, I took the electives which are more focused to all the AI. So I was fortunate to get chance to work as a research assistant in that area, and also took the electives purposefully for that specific region, and especially in the machine learning domain. So I got the exposure there. I wrote the exams about that, so I reasonably got good grades. So that also helped me in getting the PhD positions. So PhD positions are most of the time, especially in the computer science, it's not like a fixed window of applications where you apply and just get. It's like always rolling. So it's like professors get the funding from the government or companies, whatever they are, and based on that funding, they say, okay, now I have money, so now I can hire the student for the PhD, and they put the advertisement, and you apply. So I started applying when I was in at the like last 2 or 3 months of my master's thesis, because by that time I got the clear idea while writing the thesis. That is the kind of the sometimes frustrating part for many students, because here thesis work in a slightly different way. Systems are quite tough on the students. They want the best out of you. So my professor told me that if you writing your master thesis like you loved it, and think that you can do this thing for the more 3 or 5 years, then you can be more sure that you are real one for the PhD. And I love that. And then I started applying and finding the opportunity at that point of time. So I applied to the professors. It's like also a trade-off, not like a job where you can change in between. It's like some places I didn't like the research direction in which they are going. Some places professor didn't like the past background or the thing in which I wanted to go. And ultimately you find something where you both can be slightly happy. Means you always don't get what you want, but in which you both can be a good thing. And then things start from the end. Right now I work in the for a bigger project. I'm a smaller part of that project where I'm working for the like decision making module for the self-driving cars of the future. And it's like we don't have the coursework right now in Germany. PhD, at least there are two kind of PhD. One is a structured, where it's like 3 years, where like a classroom you have research, some courses and all those things, and they're unstructured, where you do the research and at some point of time you publish. And if your publications are do well enough, professors is satisfied and committee satisfied, then they grant you PhD. So for me, it's unstructured PhD. But yeah, I don't have any coursework in this, so I have only to publish the papers, and based on that, when stamps come, my professors will say, okay, now it's almost done for you, or okay to get your PhD. So yeah, so master thesis play a very big role in getting your PhD, because the master thesis is much more scientific structured. You answer some of the questions, and they read your report, professors basically, and see that okay, he's a good fit for my lab, and then they hire you. I'm not able to hear you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
That sounds like such a long process over the years. You really, I feel like what you do, because you can't. I don't think one can go through all of this without setting in mind that they want to reach to the other end.
Yeah.
So more power to you and your education. And
Fine.
self-driving cars are the future, with all the big companies. Let's not name them, but are changing the world by automation. So
That's correct.
thank you so. Yeah. So my another question would be, slightly deviating from the academics part, how did you find Germany for Indian students, and also the university that you're studying at TU Chemnitz? How do you find it for Indian students and international students?
In Germany now, it's not so difficult to find many Indians students in any of the universities. Almost, I think, I know people from different university, and there are a reasonable amount of Indian crowd there. So is that not a problem that you don't find a community? Even the I know some of the Hochschule in the very remote part, and there is also a reasonable Indian community in that way, especially from the area like software engineering, computer science, electrical engineering. Also in the mechanical and production engineering, there is a big chunk of a student. And that depends on the student personal journey also. What are your expectations from Germany? For example, are you coming for the job seeking, or coming for the, as I told TU, Hochschule versus technical university, they are different thing as per your expertise. So this is my personal experience, that I get to know a lot of different kind of people from many countries, and I also kind of learned a different kind of culture, different way of working. So for example, here at the workplace, you will only about the work. You don't, even if you have worked for many years, you don't know how many kids you have, or how many and what you are doing in your outside life. So things are quite separated here. And here you have to really learn how to take care of yourself, because usually from the Indian cultural standpoint, it's like much more easier to like get a support, making friends. Here might take some time. If you are among the Indian crowd, it's slightly easier, I would say, because we are much more prone to reach out to each other. But outside, it can be sometimes difficult, because you have a lot of things by yourself. You have to work, study, do all things by yourself, like taking care of studying, cooking, cleaning, everything you have to take care of yourself. And also, some people might have homesickness as well, the people who haven't left their home previously. So that can also impact your lot of experiences, because especially in the first semester, where you have to learn, go through a lot of things. I would say like that's the many people where people can go into depressions as well. I don't know, because weather is also especially in the winters, they are quite depressive, because things are quite closed, people are inside. But overall, there are things to offer, like a lot of things to travel around. Summers are quite beautiful. And students are treated quite nicely here, I would say, because in German system, they give a lot of benefits to a student, benefits, and also give a lot of support. Means they are a specialized job for the student where they have no taxes, considering Germany is quite famous for high tax country, and a lot of discounts you get. And you have a lot of opportunities, but you have to grab it because nobody will tell you that you can do this and why you are not doing this. So everything you have to do by yourself. That's the biggest part in Germany, make you much more independent, not only in a study but also in your personal life.
Yeah, and that coming from you, after, like you said, after you moved out of your house for college, you've been quite by yourself. And if Germany made you more independent, I can only imagine what it would be like for students who just directly go there.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to know. And I think we have covered a lot of questions. I mean, I can have like a million questions for you, but we do have some questions in the chat box that I would like to address. So, like you addressed, like, one of the students is asking, how is the culture in Germany? And would you recommend a shift in mindset before stepping the foot in that country? So, like you said, people are quite introverted and they are not that outspoken, like, as India we are used to. If apart from that, if you have any suggestions, you can let us know.
They are quite outspoken for if you ask them suggestions. They will give you very direct feedback, which can be brutal, but not outspoken in the personal relationship aspect. Culture aspect, they really value the work, unlike the many of the, especially from the workplaces. They are quite brutal in valuing the work and all those things. Even in the universities, there is, for example, I know some of the students they just failed by 1 marks and professor were not even ready to consider anything. And thing is that if you fail any subjects 3 times then you are kicked out of that program. So thing is that things are quite brutal in that sense, but also they tell you beforehand. They are quite direct, and if you ask them that how I am doing this work, they will tell you that this thing you are slacking and this thing they are quite. So you get direct feedback in that. So that can be, if that can be new for some people. Culture wise, as I told you, is difficult to get into their own inner circle because they make their own inner circle sometimes as a kid. Sometimes people also depends upon the people to people. That's very subjective. I would not say that it's common for everyone, but people are slightly much more. It takes them to get to know you, but they stick with you for a long time, and they value in the sense that they always like, if you say that I will do this thing in this point of time, they always expect that you will take care of that ownership. So they believe in much more ownership for you, whatever you say it, and they trust a lot. In my university just, for example, they used to ask me that, Kumar, can you tell me that how much hours will be required for this thing? And they take my answers as a yes. They believe that I'm telling the truth. So, and that takes some time, and you so in that way they are quite direct and they are quite trustful to you, and also it like takes both way to go forward for that. So cultural things, it can take some people have a very long time because how the personally you are, that's also biggest part. Some people are quite much more aligned to German, typical German culture. I would not say everybody in Germany is like, but typical culture which you find in the
Yeah.
majority, much more easier. So depends on your own personal experience and culture and how much you are willing to adapt for a new places, because they will not change that much for you. You are the new person here.
Thank you so much for that. Like, I mean, to be mentally prepared is the best thing you can do. I mean, you would
Yeah.
only know when you go there,
Open
but
for new
definitely.
idea, new culture, and new people. I would say that's the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. Even while within India, when you're migrating from one city to another, there is so much new things to learn. You're exposed to new people, even though you're migrating in the same country. So if you're going to another continent altogether, that will be a culture shock. It will be a difficult shift. Coming to the next question. So one of the students, Tushar, is asking, how what were the career opportunities that you came across after graduating from the program? But I believe you have already answered that. Maybe you can tell us what your peers who didn't go for PhD did. Like, what opportunities are they working in right now? I would be very curious to know that as well.
So some of the peers went into the semiconductor industry as an embedded Linux engineer. One of my colleagues who did thesis with me, he's working as a machine learning engineer in one of the mid-sized company. And some people went as a data scientist. So, and what else? And some people are also working. Some of went into self-driving cars. Some went into the hardware engineer, and some also went into the sensor development, like like sensors and the FPGA development. So it's quite a scattered across, because it's also depend on which kind of electives they took and what kind of internship or thesis they worked upon.
That's wonderful. But it's good to know that everyone is settled and everyone found better opportunities, when what they left from.
Yeah.
So that's reassuring to know. And according to you, do you think, like in your experience, is after graduating from the said university that you have studied your masters in, is it easier to navigate opportunities? Do opportunities come your way quicker than it would have otherwise if you graduate from other university?
Here you have to find the opportunity. You have to go to the career fairs, because there is nothing called a student placement cell like we have in India.
Right.
And university have a very reasonable impact. So, for example, if you have a thesis which is quite aligned to the company project which they are heading, they will. In my experience, they don't see sometime your grade or GPA at all, because they know that, okay, I want this guy, because here is nothing like job training. Like in India, you used to have training 3 months or 6 months. Here you are, after 1 week, just you are sent into a job to do it. So that's the biggest thing. And it's quite subject to the experience, which I told is among my peers. My peers might be different, because there are 120 students in my classroom. I don't know everyone, and you cannot know them. You get separated away as the semester progresses. You
Right.
take the electives, or you have your own circle. So, in that way, some people have slightly more time in finding job. Some people were much more easier. They have job lined up before they finish their thesis. Some people, they got the job in the same company where they were writing the master thesis. But whomever I know, they are mostly all of them are working somewhere.
That's good to know. That's assuring to know because some students might want to pursue courses at these universities, and we giving them a pure reality check is what we aim at, Nebula. So thank you so much for that. Um, One of the questions that I would want to ask, shifting from the audience questions, is that how important is a mentor on this journey? Like you said, you didn't have many mentors or to label a traditional mentor. Would you recommend students to have a mentor when they start pursuing their dreams on this arena?
It would have made things much more easier for me, and probably much more stressful. Means I was fortunate to have mentors in Germany. My professors were very nice mentors, but it would be much more nicer if during the application process, I have almost zero idea when I started. Things would be much more easier, and probably I would have spent less time. It will be quite easier, but they always helps you, because they already know something which you don't know. For example, in some of the applications which I look right now, because I have the much more exposure, I am on the other side now. I take interview for some of my interns in my lab, so I know what a stupid mistake I had done at that point of time when I was writing my application. Sometimes I see my applications and I laugh at myself what I wrote in those cases. So if I would have mentors or the people who could help me in that way, it can be much more easier for me. I would not say that you cannot do it by yourself. It takes a load away from you, but otherwise you can do a lot of things by yourself if you have time, efficiency. But yeah, you are much more efficient if you have a mentor, compared to the time if you don't have to do everything by yourself, because you cannot know everything by yourself. So I think it's not in the application process, but every point of time, if you have some mentors, even at the job time, they helps you to learn the job also, and how to navigate in your further career in the job. Everywhere it helps you if you can find it.
I mean, I do believe, like you said, that you can't have one mentor for all. But I like because foreign education is expensive as it is time consuming, it is confidence consuming. You face rejections. There is so much going on at once. We do recommend students to not hesitate and reach out to alumni like you. And when Nebula facilitates that option, I think you should just go ahead and talk to the person who knows the better end of it.
Yeah, that always helps you. Means I told you, it's like things much more easier.
Yeah. Another question that we have coming back to the campus life, apart from your experience as a research assistant, what would you comment on the campus life at TU Chemnitz? Like, is it happening? Is it fun? Do you have enough, programs happening frequently? What it is like?
When I was studying before the corona time, I'm telling you, it was quite happening. Means since we have the reasonable good Indian community there, so we used to have Diwali nights and all those things festival. So it was quite happening. But I also heard that since the Corona things have not picked up that much, or I'm not much aware about my old university also because I left the city. But it used to be quite happening, like a lot of events where you can um, kind of get to know each other people that kind of quite helpful for you. But yeah, it used to be quite happening for sure. As a PhD, I don't find a lot of time to work in those kind of happening events or go there. But during my masters, I had my fair share of good times meeting to know different kind of people, different kind of food. We used to have food nights, so it was quite happening.
Yeah, I've heard like I think the potluck nights, like people bring different kind of foods from
Yeah,
their culture and people share that. So yeah, it sounds interesting.
student associations are there which kind of also fund for those kind of events.
Yeah.
So it's like, for example, if you are making a potluck for cultural night for Indian, then they also give you money so that you can spend on the decorations and food preparations, and you can also, for example, sell the food. So there are a lot of different kind of activity. You can dance classes. University has a good amount of courses available from the sports because they put a lot of emphasis on the sports. Not part of university, but university have some student bodies who take care of all those things. So there are reasonable things available around you to look forward upon your interest.
Thank you so much for all your answers, Kumar. Like you have really went out of your way and told us all details possible about whether it was language training or the life at campus. Now, here is a question that I've been waiting to ask. What's next for you? I mean, you're pursuing your PhD. What do you plan ahead? Do you still want to continue researching? Are you joining some self-driving cars company very soon?
Since I'm already funded by a self-driving car or company which want to get in the self-driving cars, so that can be one of the options for me, or I can pursue the pure research base. But that depends on what kind of opportunities I am presented at that point of time. But I would like to stay in the more research-oriented field. Money was never a concern for me, but yeah, for I would like to have if I can continue my research in that way. But I'm not quite hard on that right now because I'm initial stage of PhD, so I have a lot of time to think about how my research interest shapes out. I don't know, so I'm quite flexible upon my future. But one thing is for sure that I wanted to stay in the research career rather than the classical industry sense.
That's amazing. And how far are you on your PhD program? I mean, I'm sure after the PhD you get doctor anointed by the word doctor. So even I'm very curious to
It's
know.
like I just completed 1 year of PhD, so I just started because initially you have to do a lot of you have to find out what you want to work upon or find the problems in the research domain which was to be filled up. So that part is almost done now. I started to working on my experiments. So we have a lab team here, so different people ideate, came session to each other, and then we go to conferences to present our work, get the feedback from the community in a general sense. So that's a part of the PhD which every student I'm sure that go through, not specific to computer science, but it's in general.
Thank you so much for the answer. And I mean, we will watch this journey unfold as you and wait for the day where you get anointed with the title of a doctor. That would be very
Sure.
exciting to see. So, so I believe we are at the end of questions. There are a couple of questions like what was the transition of culture and language and place, but I feel you have answered it in bits and pieces throughout the talk. That because it was difficult initially, but then you get a hang of it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, from your overall experience of life and studying at Germany and working there, do you have any last 2 cents to give to our audience, just to summarize everything?
I would say if you're really passionate about studying and wanted to challenge yourself, it's a quite a nice place. There are a lot of opportunities here as a student, which will challenge you. Studies are hard, but at the end, it is fruitful for me, and I hope it's for the others. Uh, and also, a lot of things means I always don't like when people say that this is will be the experience for everybody because it's a very personal thing. Starting from studying to cultural shock to everything is highly personal. Everybody has their own set of journey, and mentors or for example any professors or family can say that this is the one of the path, but what happens along the path is very different for you. For example, you might attend one of the classes, it's my personal experience, and then you find, oh, this is a subject which I was looking for, which you might not be aware about, but you due to some reason went to that kind of classes, or you heard somewhere, and then you are hooked up with that thing, and then you change direction from direction A to direction B suddenly, and you take the more electives and all those things, and you go into a separate set of directions. So keep yourself open, at least for initial 1 year when you are here, if you are planning to come here, and just explore as much as possible. I would say go into more breadth, and find which one you like it, and then you can work upon that thing, because if you like it, then it's much more easier to work hard on the topic which you like it, and then you go for the more depth in terms of internship or thesis, and can make your career as a researcher or as a full-time employee. Both options are possible here.
That's wonderful to know. And personally, will you stay back in Germany even after your PhD program? Because it sounds like you've made a home in Germany too.
I'm not sure about my very long-term plan, but at least for next 5 years, I'm for sure, because my PhD and I would like to have some
Yeah.
experience. But I'm quite open. Means I don't plan my life much ahead. I just plan my interest and see how it goes ahead.
That's wonderful to know. And it was great talking to you. I hope
In
you
here,
achieve all the heights that you've planned for and you didn't plan for also. And thank you so much to all the audience who have been so attentive and have been asking questions. Thank you so much for your time. Kumar is part of Nbyula now, so you can reach out to him on Nbyula very soon. And thank you so much, Kumar. I'll be ending this broadcast here, but I'm sure we'll talk again on the same topic. And
yeah,
by that time, I'm sure you'll be much ahead in your journey than you are right now.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you
Bye
very
bye.
soon for another Nebula talk.
Have a nice
Goodbye.
day.